Hello, my name is Viet Lei, and I am so grateful that Shifu Taran Champagne graced me with an opportunity to interview him. I don't know how long we've known each other, but certainly I remember following you on Facebook years ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting you finally in person at one of Ernie Wu's competitions. Um, am I, do I sound like I'm speaking? Am I remembering that correctly, Taryn? How do
I
you
I
feel? How
I
long
think
have we
we
known each
met
other?
shortly before when our buddy Sifu Jacobs Diver was having his grand reopening. I think we met in person there, and then I saw you. I think 2 weeks later at Ernie Wu's competition.
Really? Okay. Well, I feel
Now
I'm
you sound like an
embarrassed
old
that I
person. You're trying to
remember that
remember
correctly.
everything.
Anyways, I'm hoping that this is going to be like a multi-part series because there's certainly lots of questions that I want to ask you. I want to keep this light and organic. I kind of want to get a sense of what your origin story is, right? Every Kung Fu hero needs an origin story, and there's got to be one for you. So can you tell me what got you interested in Kung Fu, and how did you find your teachers? Let's start off with that.
Yeah, so my name is Taran Champagne. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I've been practicing Chinese martial arts a little over 20 years at this point. Like a lot of people, right? I was inspired by Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, Kung Fu movies, and stuff like that to want to learn martial arts. Um, and so that was, way back in early 90s when I was a kid. And then I finally got the chance to start learning martial arts. I started with Okinawan martial arts when I was in high school. But then when I went to college, there was a Kung Fu club there. I went to college at the University of Florida, and they were teaching Chinese martial arts, or they were specifically teaching Choi Lefut through an organization there, the Meihua Student Association of Martial Arts. And so a lot of the the students in the organization were students of the various Choi Lefut instructors in South Florida. I'm not certain how familiar you are with the Chinese martial arts landscape, but kind of in Florida, right? You've got Central Florida, which is kind of Wallum territory, and then South Florida, there's a bunch of people, kind of all stemming from Li Gunhong Sifu, right? His like John Y, Li Xiuhong. There was a guy, I think Raiden Leung. There's Joe Key. There's a bunch of Chola Foot down in South Florida. So a bunch of their former students or their students had gone to school at the University of Florida and decided they want to start teaching Kung Fu there. And so that's kind of where I started with my Kung Fu journey. While I was there, I also trained briefly. There was a Sifu in Gainesville, Sifu Desmond Jackson, who also did Chola Foot. But he also had picked up some other Kung Fu and Tai Chi along the way, and his Kung Fu was sublime. At the time couldn't appreciate just how fantastic he was. But yeah, his Kung Fu was outstanding. So I did a little bit of training with him. Um, and then I joined the army, moved around a bit, and ended up here in Texas. I joined a lion dance team here in Austin, the Texas Dragon Lion Dance Team, which now I'm the head instructor for. And one of their members
Congratulations on
said, "You
that.
should go meet this guy." I'm sorry?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but congratulations on that achievement.
Oh, thank you. Um, and so one of the members said, "Oh, you do Kung Fu, you need to meet Michael Thomas." And then I went and met him, and he's been my Sifu for the past 12 years. Yeah. So little 12 and a half years. So I've been training with Michael Thomas since then. And he's, when it comes to Chinese martial arts or external stuff, he is my Sifu. And, pretty much most of the stuff that I do is from him. Obviously, just as you're aware, you go and learn different things from other people, but he's my main instructor.
And what does he teach specifically? What styles
Yes.
does he teach?
He teaches. Yes.
He
Uh,
teaches chess.
so yeah. So, he's done a lot of training, traveling, things like that. He's gone and much like you, he's gone and sought out different instructors. He's done a lot of learning. But so for him, He teaches both external and internal. I've mostly focused on the external stuff with him, but he's particularly fond of his traditional long fist. So like cha quan, hua quan, and the Nanjing Guoshu Guan type long fist. And then he teaches Northern Mantis. And I use Northern Mantis as kind of the general thing because he does like the Chuchok Taiji Mantis. He also has done seven star Mantis. He's also learned eight step Mantis with Sifu Ernie Wu. Uh, and then he learned a lot of the Southern Kung Fu, the Southern long range stuff. Charlie Foot, Hong Ga. He's also done Wing Chun, and then he is particularly proud of the Southern White Crane that he learned in Guangxi. So
So there are so
lots
many
of different things.
yeah, there are so many things in this conversation that I want to delve into a little bit. So let's start with the very beginning with your chole foot. So um, you mentioned that in South Florida, like some of the pioneers of chole foot included people like Lee Kun Hung, Lee Soo Hung. How did they go from Hong Kong to South Florida, or how did that relationship start?
So some of the history stuff I'm not familiar with, and kind of I've gathered it from reading and different sources. A lot of people say that part of the reason that Lee Gunhung ended up there was Chan Poi of the Wallam system because they were Chan Poi was a big, I guess, supporter or friend of them, and then he kind of helped bring Lee Gunhung over, and then he ended up setting up shop down in South Florida, kind of near where one of his students had already set up shop, Sifu John Y. So they set, Lee Kun-hung came and set up shop, and then at some point, I guess he brought his brother Lee Soo-hung over, and then from there, just lots of people really enjoyed learning Charlie Foot and spreading it down in South Florida.
Um, Lee Kun Hong's influence on Trollyfoot is huge. Could you kind of briefly talk about like I guess the Punsing lineage, you know, some of the major forms, that kind of jazz?
Uh, so
Or
I can talk a little bit
your
about that,
training
but
of it? How do you view your training of Trollyfoot?
so my training of Charlie Foot is really quite simple. Actually, most of my Kung Fu training is really simple. It's not very complicated. And I use a lot of the Mandarin term. I don't really speak Cantonese, so right, it's a focus on the 基本功 or the basics, right? So you got your gua choi, pao choi, sao choi, cup choi, right? All those basic long range punches from Choi Foot, and practicing like the chop, the panther fist they're famous for, and pretty much all most of my training is all right. We'll just do a bunch of those, and then your combinations will come together. Actually, funny story, right? One of the hard things when I was first learning was learning the Sheng Pun Q, or like the chunao where you do the double block, and that was really complicated. Since I had come from karate background and wasn't as smooth, so I remember practicing that a lot. I would actually practice it while I was bicycling to school. I'd be on my bike and practicing punkyu while I was biking.
Wow.
Yeah, just like here, right?
And at that
And so
time, well, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, so just practicing that, trolley foot, and it may not make a lot of people happy, but you really only need so many Charlie foot forms, right? Like a lot of them are just recombinations of the same movements found in other sets. But obviously, right, the big ones you see coming out of Lee Kun Hung people, right? You see the Siu Moi Fa Kun. Obviously, that's the kind of signature thing you see. Siu Moi Fa is the small plum blossom fist. Ung Yin Kun, right? The five animal set. Tit Jin Kun, Iron Arrow fist. Sabji Kauda is the big one. Everybody does, but everybody when they demo, they just do like Siu or little Sabji Kauda, right? Because otherwise, you'll get really tired, right? Nobody wants
What
to see Sifu tired during the Masters demo.
what always got me was that the Hoijiang or Kaizhuang was the opening sequences of Trollyfoot forms were so long, right? You're bowing in like the four
Oh yeah,
directions.
God,
And by the time like you're
I'll watch my
done, like
son
it's
grow
like,
up.
oh, you haven't even started your form yet. Like we're not even there.
Sometimes I wonder about that, right? Because like, and I don't, I can't say I know the answer, but like, it's almost like how Tan Tui, right? There's like 10 road, 12 road. Mantis does their 14 road, but I almost think like the Hoi Zong for like Choi Foot was like, oh, this is how we show off. Oh, we're not even done. This is just our opening, right?
It's a good thought. It's a good thought.
A
Um,
lot of people in Chinese martial arts like to, or in really anything, right? They like to have the comparison game. So if it's like, oh well, my Hoi Zong is so long, right? You see, like I know Jiao Ga has a pretty long Hoi Zong, but not as long as Choi the Foot. But right, they'll have their distinct like one, two, three, one, and then do their three bows and everything like that. But so you'll right. I think Choi the Foot just took it to the extreme with that.
for sure, for
I mean,
sure.
really, you can just salute and start.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I don't sometimes I don't really know. I thought maybe it could be like a kind of like a home run or some kind of um symbolic main kind of practice, but I never was really quite sure about that.
It could be some of those more esoteric things. Uh, they may just be eventually lost to time, right?
Sure.
Uh, I mean, how many people are really that are actively practicing Chinese martial arts are like, oh, I'm really big into the Tong and I want to share information about the Tong with everybody.
Was it hard going from Southern to Northern martial arts for you?
Yes, it was, right? So definitely a different body mechanics, moving and stuff like that. But ultimately, right, like when people ask me about like Chinese martial arts, I'm like, ultimately it's movement, right? So I think a lot of times people get too deep into like, well, this is different from this, whereas when I study and practice, I try to look for similarities between things. And then like, oh, this is like doing a Yun Yao Jian, right? In this movement, or this is this, or this is that, and they connect, right? And that's how I build connections between things. But starting off, there was definitely a difference, but eventually it just became, something I enjoyed practicing. I both Northern and Southern Chinese martial arts.
Yeah. Um, and what was the first Northern style that you did after doing trolley foot?
So the first, let me think. Probably one of the first like changquan or long fist things that I did after starting with my Sifu was we did the what was it? Lohan Subaso Duida, right? The 18 Lohan hands fight set, right? Uh it's funny, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, very common set," but really, like, how much of this stuff is common or anything like that? I've seen other people do the set before, but yeah, the 18 Luohan's hands fight set, and that's from Hua, like the Zhonghua, right? So that Hua Quan, right? And maybe that was kind of what started me on it, and then did some Baksulam or Bei Shaolin, right? From the like Wuzang lineage. So I did some of that. And then really things lit up when I started learning Hua Quan or Flower Fist. That really lit up my interest in uh like Northern Kung Fu.
How do you oftentimes, like, people can be lumpers or splitters, and you mentioned that before. A lot of times when we're looking at long fist, I think people, especially people who do Southern Kung Fu, think, oh, it's all wushu. That's one major criticism. And number two is that people often don't know, because they're looking from the outside in, that there are distinguishing features between things like Hua Chuan, Cha Chuan, um, even things like Beishaoling. Beishaoling to me, I don't know, maybe I could get your opinion about this. It feels like it's a mixed style, right? It's not like a lot of people will argue that it has origins in Northern Shaolin Temple, and um, I won't go into debate about that. But you certainly see characteristics of maybe the other northern systems. So could you talk briefly about how did you feel going from Northern Shaolin to Huachua?
So I would say I I don't know, I enjoyed it, right? Like it's all fun, right? Ultimately, like a lot of this is about having fun and enjoying it. And I try not to think, like I said, too deep on differences with them. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be some different ways you move your body that are different, right? With it, I find the I don't want to say this, right? The Northern Shaolin, the like the Guruzang stuff. It feels, like it all kind of fits together, but there's a much heavier emphasis, let's say, on like combinations of kicks. It seems like kicking is obviously their huge thing, and maybe that's why that phrase like nan quan bei tui. I don't really know where in China that came from, but I almost wonder if that came from the South because they're like,
That
look
sounds
at
like
these northern legs and stuff like that. It's like, well, not all of them have just such, large combinations of kicks, but definitely like the Northern Shaolin has a lot more combinations of that. Like I think other than kind of some of the where you're doing like the jump inside back kick into stuff like that, that's you see that in a lot, but there's not the same level of combinations you see in the Northern Shaolin. Unless you're doing like have you ever done Yanxing Tui from the Nanjing Guoshu Guan?
I've seen it, but I've never been taught it. I
Oh,
never
okay.
knew
Yeah.
anybody who
That
knew it.
that's probably the only one from like the Nanjing Guoshu Guan that I think that really focuses that I've seen at least, right? And I'm not no expert on it or anything, but that I've seen that has like those multiple combinations of kicks in it. But or like Flower Fist, right? Flower Fist doesn't have nearly as many kicks as you see in like Northern Shaolin. So
Hua seems almost like it's almost like a short range style invented by Northerners.
yeah, that's
Kind.
fair enough. The nice thing that I like about it, right? Like everything you do, right, has an expiration date, right? Some of those beautiful kicks and stuff like that, you can keep practicing, but like your level, your athleticism and ability to really like showcase it maybe decreases with time. Obviously, we want to practice and extend that longevity as long as we can, but the flower fist, because it has less of that, um, potentially a little longer shelf life on that.
Okay.
Right? Like there are some videos online of some like from a long time ago of some like Sifu's doing cha chuan, and you can tell they're like really old guys. And it's really cool seeing them doing it, but they may not necessarily be the best representative of it. But at this point, right, those old videos are all that maybe is what represents what they taught at this point.
Sure. Do you find that a lot of times in the West, the only way that we know about these traditional Northern long fist systems is basically through the standardization of certain wushu forms. Like there's like a Tachuan compulsory, there's a Huachuan compulsory. Um, how did you feel about those efforts to preserve those styles into one form versus learning the system?
So we can back up a little bit and like to me starting out like kung fu was just southern kung fu. Like
Mm,
until really I started learning with my Sifu, I didn't know too much about northern kung fu. I'd seen a little bit like of like the 32 step long fist
mm,
set, but I didn't really delve too deep. YouTube was still fairly there wasn't a lot on YouTube and I wasn't actively like looking. I'm very much the guy who looks kind of what's in front of me. I don't tend to look all around and stuff like that. So like what's in front of me is kind of what I go for, right? Some people like, oh, I'm searching out this teacher or whatever who teaches this rare thing. I'm like, well, why don't I just go to a guy I have easy access to, right? That's uh that's a little bit easier for me. So, but as far as like contemporary wushu, right? I have a lot of respect for kind of the first set of compulsories and everything like that. Really good, really strong traditional fundamentals, things like that. As it's gone on, right, and they've focused heavily on the nandu, I think they've gotten away from it, and it's really weird. I always hear these people talk about, oh yeah, we really want to go back to this, blah blah blah, but nobody actually does that.
I think I think Wuxia has gone too far down that road. There's no way of it reining back, right? You'd have to change the
It
mindset,
would take a concerted effort. Yeah, it would
right?
take a concerted effort from, very high level.
Right, from the ground up. I mean, during that golden
Yeah.
period, if someone wanted to learn Xingyi, they would actually find a Xingyi teacher to teach them some of the basics first before doing.
Yeah, of course.
Now it's like, oh yeah, Xingyi, Nanchuan, Beichuan, like, yeah, it's just another routine. So just learning off the video. Here's just a bunch of movements. It doesn't have that flavor anymore. So that's unfortunate.
Actually, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. So I learned the Miao Dao, right? The sword that cats ask for by name. Uh, and I learned Arlu, right? The second road, right? You probably done at least fourth road, I imagine. That's the pretty popular one in Wutan. Uh, but so I learned second road from my sifu, and then I had a buddy of mine try to learn it from a video, and then he was asking me questions like, "How come yours looks better?" or this and that. I'm like, "Because I learned from a person who actually practiced it." And if
Can
you
you,
can
can,
imagine.
yeah, for sure. YouTube, I mean, there's been certainly just like every sort of tool, there's been pros and cons, right? Um, I think that it allowed a lot of people insight into styles that they would have ordinarily not have any access to or any insight to. But at the same time, I think it also meant that people practice less, right? People made people just thought, oh, it's on YouTube. I can learn off the video. I don't need to go find somebody. Oh, I got this routine. I'm just going to learn something else. That kind of thing. It just kind of, I don't know, denigrated kung fu a bit. Um, can you talk briefly
I mean,
about
it
seafood?
certainly
Go
changed
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's changed it. It's just another step. I always try to be careful not to get too down on things, right? Like some people, right? Probably when Sifu Wing Lam was publishing his video series on tape back in the 80s, like there were people who probably like don't like that or whatever, but like he was able to reach so many people who would not have had that opportunity. And for some of these things, right? There's some of those are saved for historical purposes, right? Like otherwise it would just be in complete obscurity. It allows people to meet other people and stuff like that, and let you know what's out there. I mean, I'm not so much for learning off video. It's maybe I'm not smart enough, or I don't know. I'll go learn from somebody. It's more fun that way.
Can you talk briefly about how uh, your Michael Thomas, like it seemed like he must have gone to a lot of different places. Like uh, how how did he come to learn so many different styles? How did you find him?
Uh, so I do know. So right. So he learned from Dr. Yang Jingming when he was in Houston, and his senior student Jeff Bolt, kind of when they were teaching in Houston. And then, he traveled to meet different instructors, like he would travel to Hong Kong and then he would go train with different schools in Hong Kong, which is really interesting, right? Because like here, so many people are like, oh, you can't talk to them, they're this or they're that. Like in Hong Kong, at least according to my seafood, everybody's kind of friendly with each other. And you can see that right in the fact that a lot of people do some of the same stuff, right? Like Hongga and the Bei Shaolin, and then the Taixing Pekwa, the Dasheng Pigua. They all do the same broadsword set called Taisheng Pekwa Dando, right? It's the
Right,
same set, it's in the name, and they all do it, so they all traded. Hongga does Bengbu, right?
right.
So he traveled over there, and then some of his teachers, right? Some of the stuff that he does, um, they were just random guys he met. And he learned some really amazing stuff from them, like his Hongga and Cholefoot and Wing Chun teacher, Li Jianda, taught him the big three kind of Southern styles. And I don't think really many people have heard of Li Jianda. He learned uh, a lot of really awesome Northern stuff from a guy named Wang Zhong'an. Nobody's heard of Wang Zhong'an. And then obviously one of his major influences was Madame Wang Zhurong, the daughter of the very famous Wang Ziping. He actually got a call from Nick Gracenon, right? Sifu Nick Gracenon, and he was calling. He's like, "Hey, Michael, it's so fortunate that Madame Wong is in Houston." My Sifu was like, "Well, who's Madame Wong?" And then Nick Grayson's like, "You really need to go train with her." And then through that, right, like he got to learn the Cha Chuan, the Hua Chuan, and a bunch of other stuff from Madame Wong. And then Houston. Well, now it's heavily populated by like Shaolin monk schools. There's a lot of traditional Chinese martial arts there and has been for a long time. You may just, it's not going to be the big sexy storefront school where you can immediately just go and walk in and be like, oh, I want this, right? Sometimes it's like people in a park, some people know each other, things like that. I mean, you've been to Houston a couple times, so there's, if you know where to look and the people to ask, you can find a lot of traditional Chinese martial arts there.
That's a really good point that you make. A lot of times, we don't realize like the landscape of America. There are lots of traditional martial artists in different parts of the country, and each area of the United States, because of a teacher's influence and the number of students they had, um, they built these little communities, right? These little microcosms. Um,
Hmm.
Back then, like everyone sort of desired to go to Taiwan, Hong Kong, mainland China to pick up stuff, but sometimes you just need to look at your own backyard, right? Um,
Yeah, that's like my earlier point, right? Like I just kind of look at what's available and right in front of me in a lot of cases. Well, it's really cool and a great experience when you can travel to train. Um, it's, you know, not always the most economical. It doesn't necessarily always lead to kind of those long-term relationships where you can build your kung fu and your sifu can be like, oh, well, hey, do this or change this or, why don't you adjust a little bit? So there's that. So sometimes it's really cool that people can travel and you get a lot of great experiences and stuff like that. But I think sometimes you just need to look, like you said, in your own backyard and see what's up.
do you have any trouble keeping all of the styles straight in your mind, all the forms straight? Do you kind of uh, maybe just pick a couple and kind of practice them like every couple of weeks? Like, how do you uh, how do you manage your practice, your personal practice?
So usually a lot of the time I'm practicing maybe something I recently learned and then something that I learned a while ago. Nobody can keep them all 100% straight, so you have to go back and review and stuff like that. But you have your core things that you do all the time, right? Like maybe your tan tui, right? You practice your tan tui all the time. Or maybe if you're like doing Tai Chi, right? Like I always practice the 24 form or whatever. Uh, but mainly a lot of it is practicing what I've recently learned or started practicing, and then something maybe that I haven't practiced in a while. And then there are some things, right? You practice it so many times you can just pull it out like that.
That's pretty amazing. Like I remember like just seeing you in competition, and I still don't have the guts to compete against you. But you were
Oh no,
able
we
to.
have to.
We have, well, maybe when we find the right setting. I'm fearful of ever going against you. I'll admit that on camera. But you were just going from
Oh
ring to
no,
ring,
it's
and
fun.
you were just your energy level was up, your movements were sharp. You not only got through the routine, but you did it with like a sense of like power and grace. Like it's very rare to see
Oh
anybody
yeah, you were there when I was like ring to
just
ring.
back and
Literally, I'd
forth,
finish
back
in
and
one ring
forth.
and
It's amazing, right?
it was fun.
Going back to your training of long fist, I think in conversation you talked about um, you're wanting to spend more time with Cha Chuan, right? What
Yes.
is it about Cha Chuan that appeals to you?
Oh, it's really fun. It's really fun. It's so like it's good for you health wise, right? And maybe I'll upset some people, but right, like some of the styles don't move very much. And so I think it's not good for long-term health. Whereas Cha Chuan, those big open movements, I think are very important for longevity. You need to do that because naturally, as everybody gets older, their movements get smaller, right? They shuffle or something like that. So you practice those big movements. I think it's good for your health. For kids, I think it's really important because it gets them to get all the energy out. And then as you age, right, it's really important to keep those big movements to uh, keep doing it. And, it's Cha-Chuan is really quite an amazing system. Lots of actually shuai jiao, throwing in it. A lot of people like, oh, look at those big movements. That's nothing. A lot of that is just throwing people, right? You see like your holy out your backswing quick. That's a throw, right? You're just swinging, sweeping their leg out. I don't think people always think of it that way. They just think, like you said, like, oh, it's just modern wushu, really good movement, really beautiful movement, but nothing in there. But really, um, at least one interpretation, right? A lot of it is your Qinna and your Shuaijiao in there. That may be from Madame Wong's husband, Dr. Wu, because he was really big into Shuaijiao. So it could be an interpretation, but I've seen other people interpret it as a lot of throwing and stuff like that.
And what does the Cha system curriculum consist of?
Right? It's kind of whatever's left now. Right?
Um,
Like that's the truth, right? Like some people say they're like the 10 handsets of Chatren, but uh I've been having a hard time finding many people who practice all 10,
mhm.
right? And then obviously there's the different weapon sets that are associated with it. You've got your basic, staff, broadsword, straight sword, spear, but then, you've got other weapons in there. You've got like the monk spade, the guandao, pu dao. I've seen a video of people doing the tongue or that kind of like spear with the mustache on the side.
Hmm.
I call it the mustache fork because it's more funny than calling it like a rake or something like that. Uh, I'm certain somebody like will call it that in the future and be like, what the heck, man? Like, why do you mess me up? But so there's that. They've got the Liu Ye Dao, the willow leaf broadsword. Um, you know, And then obviously you've got your tantui involved in there. And then depending on who you talk to, right? Like some things may or may not fit in Chatren. It's like this looks like Chatren and feels like Chatren. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's like the Shaolin thing. Everything is Shaolin to people, but Shaolin is more like a branding name.
It is. It is. For sure.
If you say
For sure.
Shaolin, people know Kung Fu. If I say Chatren, right, people be like, what's Chatren?
Well, this is me shooting myself in the foot, but oftentimes, me coming from sort of a Taiwanese lineage background, we often use this term Northern Longfist or Northern Shaolin, and realize that the forms within that Northern Shaolin system actually stem from multiple sources, right? You have, Cha Chuan number four, and Pao Chuan number three. Like, it's not the same as going in depth with just one system, right?
I
And I
mean, at
imagine
some
that.
point, right? They've kind of synthesized, right? Like there's a curriculum now. Like, when did the Nanjing Guoshu Guan start? Like 100 years ago, right? And so that stuff is kind of coalesced in like if you're talking to Taiwanese long fist practitioners who are like from Hanxing Tang, you're like, oh, okay, so um, you do Ilu Mai Fu now within it. And depending on who you train with, right, there's a certain like body mechanic that moves with it. Like if you look at Yang Jingming's guys, right? They all lots of Fachin everywhere, right? And then maybe if you train with some other people who have learned from other students of Han Tang or from that kind of lineage, maybe they move a little bit differently. But I feel like, yeah, they use Northern Shaolin, and from a historical perspective, I may not always agree with it, but it's definitely some of it is coalesced at some point, right?
Right. But now that we have access to practitioners who know specific systems, we can go into more detail about them rather than just using
Mhm.
one form and that informing our opinion about whole systems, right?
To be fair, though, most people's opinions on Chatren are informed by Sulu Chatren.
Right.
They're
That's
like,
all
"Oh,
I.
I do Chatren," and they're like, "Oh, what Chatren do you do? Sulu Chatren. Do you do anything else?" No.
Can you tell me so far in terms of the Chachuan system, um, what forms have you learned thus far, and which forms are you quote unquote missing?
So I've done 1, 4, 6, and 10. 1, 4, 6, 10. Tan Tui, Urshifa. I put Urshifa in there just because I think it should go in there, whether it's traditional Chachuan or not. Hard to say. Done a Chachuan broadsword set, two spear sets, monk spade, Hu Dao, Liu Ye Dao. Um, Maybe I learn all 10 hand sets, maybe I don't. You know, we'll have to see. Um, there's a lot of I'd like to learn that mustache fork. That'd be pretty cool. That's that's something my Sifu said I should learn because he practices it. But as far as what there is to complete or learn, it's whatever my Sifu wants to teach me. I've only met a couple other people who practice Chachuan who are like, yeah, I do Chachuan. I met a guy who's from Canada, so he I met him, and at some point I'd like to meet up with him and trade some stuff. And I got to meet the Chachuan Sifu at Jinghumen in Shanghai. That was really cool to meet him. And so probably next time I go to China, I'll some time to do some training with him.
Uh,
But as far as what I need to learn, I'll learn whatever comes my way.
what comes your way? I admire that fact about you because I've said this on previous podcasts. Like I've been a pretty bad kung fu seeker. Like if I really wanted to learn something, a style, a form, I would do anything possible to get that goal. Whether that meant talking to somebody else, paying them huge amounts of money. I haven't been a good student, and sometimes like when I hear like how you've been able to just sometimes I guess through sheer luck or just being in the right place at the right time, be able to learn what you've learned. I find that definitely impressive and worth noting, right? Um, can you
Uh,
since
I mean,
you brought go ahead.
I was
Go
gonna say
ahead.
it's been pretty easy for me because for the longest time I was pretty broke, so I can only learn what's in front of me. So right, like it's not sort of like secret. Oh, he's got some Zen thing. No, it's like, well, this is what I got. I can learn this.
Um, since you brought it up, can you tell me about some of your travels to, mainland China and the seafoods that you've met? What kind of insights you've brought back?
Yeah, so it's really easy because I've only been to China once.
Perfect. Perfect.
So I went to China. So my wife's from China, so we went there last year. And obviously, going around China, you see a lot of people practicing Tai Chi, right? And I think maybe yeah, I mean it's just like anywhere, right? You have your spectrum of skill. I think probably the people that I saw it didn't seem like I think they were doing it more for health, right? So there wasn't less focus on like, oh, I really want to train with like good postures, deep stances, stuff like that. I met in Qingdao, I met some Yichuan people. They were really surprised I knew exactly what they were doing, right? Because they were just standing on the beach in the Santizi, right? Right? And so I go up to them and I'm like, "Hey, are you guys practicing Yichuan?" And they're like, "How do you know what Yichuan is? Like, you're a foreigner." Well, you're just kind of standing there in Zanzhuang. That's like your thing, right? Um, and then one day when my wife had some other things she needed to take care of. She's like, "Oh, go find something to do while I do this." So I went to Shanghai. I'm like, "I'm gonna go to Jingwu, right? Like it's famous from the movies and stuff like that." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go." I actually wrote to you asking what the address was so I could figure it out. So I went to Jingwu, man. And the cool thing was, right, like, so I go there and I'm like right in front of it, and I'm there with my son, and like outside they've got the wood uh boards, right, that say like Jingwoman and stuff like that. And they got a little TV screen, and right on it, I guess saw a picture of Sifu Jimmy Wong there. So he's like there. And then like I'm sitting there and I'm like talking to my son, I'm like, I wonder if we can go in. And this Chinese guy walks up and he's like, "Is this Jingwoman?" I'm like, "Well, that's what the sign says." And he's like, "Can we go in?" He's like, I'm like, "I don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out." And he's like, "Well, you just come with me and I'll say you're with me." And so we go inside, right? And it was really cool because right, turns out they were having a Bagua seminar that day, and it was kind of open to the general public. I don't really practice Bagua, so I was trying to follow my best, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like it's really beautiful in there. It has definitely like a feeling though of like early 1900s gymnasium and
Hmm.
stuff like that. They got the really cool mural on the side, and they got like comics all up along the
Right,
wall.
right, right,
It's
right.
really neat. And so afterwards, like the class was over, like, oh, thank you all the sifus from around Shanghai for coming in and teaching Bagua. Like, we really appreciate it. And then there's a guy in the corner and he's practicing Gong Li Chen, right? And I've done Gong Li Chen before. It's not something that like I practice a lot. Right, like you said, like what do you keep in your mind and what do you don't? Gong Li Chen is one of those ones that I keep in my mind less than others. But so like I go over there, I'm like, I just start following along, and the instructor over there, he's like, "Hey, you've done kung fu before, right?" With bad dubbing and everything like that, right? And so I'm like, yeah, I've done kung fu before. And he's like, oh, where did you learn? I'm like, oh, I'm from the US. I learned there. He's like, what did you do? And I said, oh, I do cha chuan. And like his face lights up. He's like, what? Cha chuan? And he like runs over to his bag, pulls out his cell phone, pulls something up. And then he's like, and he shows me his phone. And he like, do you know what this is? I'm like, oh, this is the list of the different seafoods here at Cha Chuan. And and so he like points at something on the list. He's like, "You know who this is?" I'm like, "This is your Chatran instructor." He's like, "Yeah, that's me." And he was super excited like to see somebody else who does Chatran. And and so I'm like, "Okay, well, do you want to see some of my Chatran?" And so I do the 10th road. The 10th road is really a little more dynamic. And I didn't want to do the fourth road because everybody does that, right? And that's boring to do the same thing everybody else does. So I do the 10th road, and that guy, he was like so ecstatic. He's like, man, he's like talking to his students, he's like, see this foreigner? Like, those are standard movements right there. And like, so I got him on WeChat, and then I was like asking him because I wanted to go visit the bust of Luo Guangyi. And he told me, oh, well, that's in Jingwu Park, which is in another part of the city. And so, but it was really cool. And, hopefully next time I go to China, I'll meet up with him and get some different insights into Chatran.
So how
So,
and so I'm guessing he was just was he a visiting instructor or does he live in
no, no,
Shanghai?
no. This dude was really cool. Liu Shifu was really cool because his granddad, or his Waigong, right, his mother's father, was a contemporary of Luo Guangyu. And so he was one of like the big guys that came to Jingwumen to
Right.
teach. And so his granddad actually there's a bust of him in that same Jingwu Park.
Oh my God. And this just
And
all
so like,
happened on the fly? Like you just like how do you just walk into Jingleman and just I guess do free lessons of Bawajang and Gong Li Chuan? Like just some guys say, hey, you're with me. It just all happened just like this. You didn't talk to anybody like like
nope, nope, nope.
security guard or anything. That's impressive.
No. I just, like you said, right time, right place. And so now,
Yeah.
like I said, next time I go there, I'm gonna take some lessons from Liu Shifu. That's one of my plans while going to China next time because, I mean, there's not exactly a lot of Cha-Chuan people running around, which is nice, right? Because I don't get into those like disagreements like you see like the Hongga or the Wing Chun people get like, oh, your Q Sao is wrong. It's off by 5 degrees, it's completely ineffective, right? But so it's really nice to have the opportunity to get some insight from somebody else. And then like I said, his granddad was contemporary of Luo Guangyu, and the guy pretty much like grew up at Jingwumen. So like he's been there his whole life, training, teaching, all that kind of stuff. Turns out him and I were both at Shifu Jimmy Wong's Legends of Kung Fu competition at the same time,
Oh, so he's
like
been in the
in
United States
2016, at least once, yeah.
at least once.
So
Wow.
in 2016, when Sifu Jimmy Wong was still doing his Legends of Kung Fu competition, he had a big like international competition. So he invited Jingwumen schools from all over the country or the world. And so the Chinese delegation went there. The Shanghai delegation went there, and turns out he was in Texas at the same time I was.
What
We
are
were
the
like,
chances?
what's that phrase? Like the two ships passing in the night.
Right. Oh man, that's a great find. Let's backtrack a little bit. So you said you were in Qingdao, right? And you
Yeah.
saw these guys doing each one. Did you by chance see anybody practicing mantis at all? Or did you visit any
No,
mantis
I
makers
wanted to go
in
find
Qingdao?
Mantis, and I actually asked them, and no, no. So I talked to the E-Trend guys. I'm like, hey, where did the Mantis people practice? They said, oh, they practice. I think it was like Sunday, and I was only there like that was my last day in Qingdao when I was there. So I
Oh,
missed the Mantis guys by being there on the wrong day. We
oh,
had gone to Qingdao to see a French musical.
weird. Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, go to China, see the French musical.
Oh yeah, I'll tell my wife the next time. So you unfortunately you weren't able
Yeah,
to.
they were.
You would think that there'd be mantis people practicing every single day, not just Sundays. Uh,
Man, shoot, that's what a lot of people think. They're like, oh, you go to China, they're all over the place. Actually, not really. You have to know the guy or you have to find the right group and things like that.
for sure.
Like I
Um,
said, I missed the Mantis guys by showing up on the wrong day.
but you showed up in Jingwumen on the right day by meeting this Cha master. Did he do
Yeah,
other
I
studies
did.
as well?
I'm certain he does the basic 10 of Jingwumen, but I mean that's really what we talked about. Like, right? Like it's like if somebody goes to you, right? Like I know you've done some Hongga, right? But they're not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna talk with Viet. I want to talk to him about Hongga. No, you're gonna talk about your experience with Wutan, right?
Right,
And
right,
stuff like
right,
that.
right, right, right. Very cool. Did you see anything else when you were on this trip to China? Um,
No, not really. The mostly saw Taiji in parks.
okay. Have
I mean, I
you
think that's
ever?
probably
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's probably what most people would see just kind of meandering around. Like the chance that you're gonna find somebody doing something that maybe that's not Taiji, you're gonna have to, I think, be looking for it.
Hmm.
Like
Did
finding the Cha-Trens Shifu at Jingwumen. I didn't know that they taught Cha-Tren there because I always thought of the Ten and Mantis, but I mean, an Eagle Claw and maybe like Mizong, right? But I mean, I went to a kung fu place, so I found kung fu there. If I'm just wandering around the streets, probably not going to find it.
that's true. Um, in Shanghai, did you join? Did you just because you know some of the some Taiji? Did you ever join with those groups? Did you do push hands with anybody by chance?
Uh, so, uh, so no. Uh, so I've traveled a couple times with my wife, and every once in a while I'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see, the kung fu people or lion dance people around there," and then it takes a lot of time, and so I try to avoid that when I'm traveling with my wife, so that way I can focus on spending time with her and not making friends.
That's wise advice. It's hard. It's hard how you balance balance having a family with this kung fu hobby, right?
Yeah,
In some ways, it can be all encompassing, right?
right. That's why training happens before like 8 in the morning or after 8 at night.
That's true. That's true. You do shoot quite a number of videos, right? Is it in your in your
Oh yeah,
front
yeah, yeah.
yard
It's
or your
just
park?
it's at the park across the street from my house.
Okay. Um, Tell me more about your lion dancing. Can you tell me more about that endeavor of yours? How you got
Yeah,
into it?
so to me, growing up, I'd never seen a lion dance in person. I'd just seen it in movies. So it was like movie stuff to me, right? I didn't grow up in an area where there was like a large Asian community where they're going to be lion dancing and stuff like that. And so when I was in college, the the group I was with, they got asked to do lion dance, and they're like, "Well, let's figure out who wants to do it." I'm like, So like the first lion dance that was in person that I saw, I was actually like participating in. And so, and then practiced with them, learned there. And then when I moved to Texas, I joined the Texas Dragon Lion Dance team. Their head instructor retired after a couple years. He had gotten married, had a kid, and decided, that was it for him. He was moving on to the next phase of his life. And, I ended up, you know, becoming the head instructor. And, I started teaching all the classes in 2016. So, yeah, I've been doing it a little while. And then, got to learn Dragon Dance here and stuff like that.
Recently, I noticed, at least when I was on Facebook, that there were a couple of people from overseas that had been teaching workshops. I'm not super aware
Oh,
of line dancing. I think that there are different styles of line dancing. Can you talk briefly about that and maybe these links that you've made with these overseas practitioners or masters of line dancing?
yeah. So obviously Lion Dance, it's broken. You've got Northern Lion, which is kind of the big furry one. That I've never done Northern Lion Dance, but it looks really hot. Uh, being in that hair suit. And I'm in Texas, so like even when it's winter time here, it's still, a balmy 60, 70 degrees for the highs.
Hmm.
So that hair suit looks like it'd be miserable, especially in the summer. But the more common one you see around, that you see like, is the Southern Lion. You've got Fatsan or Fosan style, and then Hesan or Hoksan. Those are kind of the two main ones that you see. There's a third style, the Jiaoga Lion, from the Jiaoga system or Zhoujiaquan, right? And so because of that, right, I had a member of my team who was a student of Sifu Derek Johnson of Jiaoga, and we invited him to teach a seminar here in Austin. I always want to get different opinions and insights into things, right? Like, and plus his kung fu is really, really good, right? I don't know if you've ever had the chance to meet him, but his kung fu is sublime. Uh, and so he, got to know him, got to become friends with him, and then he asked me if I wanted to bring a dragon dance master to the U.S. And so we brought Master Ek Nguang or Yi Rongyuan, right? Who I didn't know when I was bringing him. He is like the guy to learn Dragon Dance from. The kind of undisputed world champs of Dragon Dance, Yaya Wall. He was their Sifu for 30 years. And
Wow.
so once again, right, I just looked at what's in front of me. Sifu Johnson, he told me like, hey, I want you to bring my friend over. He can teach Dragon Dance. And this past August, I became Master X disciple. So I became his Tudi, right? It was arranged in the very traditional sense where like Sifu Johnson, who I could refer to as my Siso, right? Or Shishu, right? He he talked to Master Ek and said, I think he would be a good disciple for you. So very much the old way where like, hey, I think this would be a good thing for you. You should go for it. And once again, right, like following kind of what's in front of me and not looking all around. Uh, I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. And now I'm part of the third generation of what's called a Shaolin Luminous Dragon Dance, which originated in Singapore.
Okay.
So yeah, that's that right there.
Wow. Uh, And you'll have to pardon me on the pronunciations. Do you have any links to this Sar Ping or
Oh
Sha?
no,
I-
no. Well, I have friends who are part of the Hokusan Sarping lineage,
Okay.
but I don't practice Saping.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool.
So no,
Mm.
no, it's a pretty. I mean, that means you're at least informed on that. I'd say that's kudos to you since you don't really do lion dance. So kudos for at least being aware of that.
I feel I feel unlucky because I've been asked over the years, like, hey, do you know about lion dancing? Like every kung fu practitioner should know about lion dancing, but every style that I did had absolutely no links to lion dance, right?
Well,
I even
yeah, I've never heard of Wutan lion dance.
no, no. And even like the short stint that I did Southern styles, like not every Southern style does lion dance. I
Correct.
think like, like some of the ones with have like a bit more of a following. For example, like Hungar, obviously, Trolleyfoot, but like, I'm not aware of Tibetan White Crane having its own sort of distinct lion dance, that
I
kind of thing.
mean, the with the Jalga Mantis people, or I think
Yeah,
they
they
the
do maybe
ones in New
Hakka,
York.
Hakka the unicorn,
Oh
maybe.
man, yeah. Well, even like or like Taiwan, right? Like if you see the guys from like Yang Jingming, right? Very clearly their lion dance is influenced by the Taiwanese green lion.
Hmm.
Like you watch it and you listen to the music, you're like, this is not the same as the other people's. And you can see they're doing this movement a lot and
Right,
stuff like
with the
that.
head, right?
Yeah, they're making
Um,
the infinity symbol. They're getting their shoulder workout in.
I had the pleasure of finally seeing the Taiwanese lion dance in person when I was in Taiwan because they
Oh,
started the
that's
body
cool.
conference with that, and then some very strong. I think it was White Crane, maybe it was Wu Zuchuan, but some of their performances were it was quite impressive to see. Because, like you
So I'm
said,
assuming
usually
they
we
were like,
see the Hoxan or we see the Fatsan line, but not really much talk about Fujian traditions. Um, how is lion dance taught on that note?
I mean, so, right, you have different groups, like you have ones associated with Kung Fu schools, you have ones in like churches and temples. A lot of that is Vietnamese. And then you have, right, Vietnamese people love them some lion dance.
I will agree to that for sure. That's why I get asked so
Uh,
much, whether I know it or
yeah,
not.
that's one of the few words I know in Vietnamese, right? Mulan, right? Because
Well
I
done.
hear it.
Well done.
Yeah. And then there's like, sometimes interest groups like my team where it's not affiliated with a temple or a church or a kung fu school, right? And so a lot of those groups focus strictly on lion dance. So there's no kung fu associated with it, right? It's developed into its own thing with its own rules and stuff like that. And then you have your same thing as like kung fu, right? You have your Ji Ben Gong that you learn. You learn your stances, how to hold the mouth, hold the lion, move the mouth, how to lift people, all that kind of exciting stuff. So that, and depending, right, if you're learning the Hoksan Sarping, you learn the 18 pattern drum, stuff like that. And yeah, there's a set kind of way you teach it and stuff like that. You start with basic stances, then handling it, or in the old days they say, oh, you start with symbols or stuff like that. Like to me, there's not enough time to wait for like somebody to show loyalty after 3 years in teaching. It's like, no, you need to start learning now.
And are there people who does everybody get to learn every aspect of lion dance, or do some people just gravitate towards the music aspect? Some people just gravitate towards the lion aspect. Like, how,
I think it depends on the
how do you
person.
teach it within your group? Does everybody get to experience
Uh,
everything?
Yeah, everybody needs to experience most things except for like drumming. Not everybody learns drumming. But gong and cymbal, everybody has to learn basic lion patterns and stuff like that. Same thing with the dragon, right? Everybody needs to learn how to be like a body pole. And then some people will learn head, pearl, tail, or the center and the neck. Those are kind of the pieces that have a little bit difference to them. But, I try to teach people that are interested as much as I can, right? You just show up and learn, and I want to teach. And if they want to learn Kung Fu, right? A lot of people are like, oh, he does lion and dragon dance, but also they can come learn Kung Fu from me.
Do you right now keep them sort of separate, or do you make kung fu a
Yes.
prerequisite?
Nope. Nope.
No,
They're separate.
they're separate.
So, so, yep. That's about it. You know, but the Kung Fu stuff, that's what I practice the most. I'm a Kung Fu guy that ended up in a dragon and lion dance world.
You've done your fair share of traveling throughout the United States, and you mentioned Seafood Derek Johnson. I know that you also train with another teacher in the DC area, um, Nick Grayson. And could you talk about how you came to meet him? what have been your impressions thus far? I know that
Oh,
he
yeah,
gave you a shout out on a certain podcast.
yeah.
So
So he's good friends with my Sifu. Uh, so I mean, once again, right, I'm just kind of looking at what's in front of me and trusting people. That's a big thing. I think a lot of people don't always trust their teachers. And that's not a slight on them, but it's a form of, you know, how do I put this, right? Like it's a trust thing that goes both ways, right? Because you have to trust that your student trusts you, and then you have to trust your teacher, right? And there's always the potential for abuse within that Sifu disciple relationship. For I've been pretty fortunate that that hasn't, I've never had any issues with that with my Sifu, but right. So he's like, oh, Nick Grayson is my friend, and so I actually met Sifu Nick Grayson at one of the Nick Screamus ICMAC tournaments. And I was like, hey, are you Nick Grayson? And he's like, yeah, you know, yes, I am. I'm like, oh yeah, my Sifu says hi. He's like, well, who's your Sifu? He's like, Michael Thomas. And, he knows him from way back when. Uh, I think they met at a competition where Sifu Grayson gave my Sifu some tips on broadsword. But, they'd also hung out in China and stuff, learning compulsories way back in the 80s and stuff. And so right? So I was hanging out with my buddy in DC. This was during COVID. Traveling during COVID was great because nobody was doing anything, but I was. So, I went to DC. Tickets were cheap, right? And I was with my friend. We were walking his neighborhood, and he's like, and we saw this park, and there was a yin yang in the park. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw a guy practicing kung fu in the park here. I'm like, well, who teaches kung fu in DC? And then I'm like, oh, it's Nick Grayson. And so I messaged him after I left, because I'm like, hey, I was in your stomping grounds. And he's like, oh, did you go to the dumpling place down here? I'm like, no, I went to the Xinjiang restaurant right next door. Uh, and so I visited my friend and, went and saw Sifu Grayson, um, and, got to partake in his class. And I got to have a private lesson with him. I'm going to do some more lessons with him here shortly. But as far as like my impressions of him, one, he's a really, really nice guy, super knowledgeable, an encyclopedia of both modern and traditional. And to your point earlier in the conversation, he's one of those guys where why are you going over to China when you could go learn from him right in DC? Like he's right in our backyard. And he he's great, fantastic, knowledgeable about applications, doing the set, not only performative but applications, historical stuff like that. He's the kind of guy that I would aspire to be, but I don't read that much. So I practice more than read. I'm
you
not very well read when it comes to all the history and stuff like that. I'm like a doer.
that's a trend within our community that a lot of people will go back to these like ancient texts and translations and um, delve into words of forebears. But I think ultimately, I mean, you've had it right all along. The secret is the practice, right? It's not in over intellectualizing. Um, so I don't know. I've gone down that wormhole once, and I thought, yeah, I'm not really getting much out of it. I'd rather, or if I had just 10 minutes in my day, would I rather be reading something quickly or would I rather be practicing? I'd rather be practicing. So
It's really easy for me too because I can't read and write Chinese. And so like so much of the canon when it comes to Chinese martial arts is in Chinese. Not only in Chinese, but Chinese that you have to know what you're looking at, right? You have to understand the poem or the chengyi that goes along with it, right? Like the
same,
phrase.
right?
And it's uh not easily accessible,
For sure.
right? Like learning I think you need to learn terms and theory and stuff like that. But to your point, over obsessing over what was it the famous sword manual Qi Ji Guang, I think it is, or something like that.
Mhm.
Like obsessing over that manual maybe takes away from your current practice.
For sure. For sure. What
Is
kind of
practice hard?
advice? Go ahead.
Oh, No, I was just saying practicing hard really is what I think is most important.
I agree. I agree. What kind of advice? Because we have the free Zoom version, so we only have 10 minutes left in this meeting. So I kind of wanted to just spend just a little bit just getting maybe some of your advice for Kung Fu practitioners right now, and maybe some of your goals for the near future for yourself.
Uh, mo First piece of advice is have fun. Don't take it too seriously. I think a lot of people get wrapped up in like this is everything, but like you have your whole life, you have your, your family, you have, friends, stuff like that. Like you can have a blast and stuff like that, but have fun while you're doing it. If it becomes a chore to you, it's not worth it, man. Like that's what I think. I have the good fortune of having students that learn from me, teachers that trust me and share a lot of stuff with me, and I do my best to pass on their information and everything like that. But you need to enjoy what you're doing. If it becomes a chore or you're like, why am I doing this? Then that energy flows into what you're doing, right? You got to be enthusiastic and happy um, about what you're doing. If it's a job to you, well, shoot, if you're teaching kung fu, most of the time you're not getting paid that much, right? Like there are very few commercially successful schools, uh, and they're kind of restricted in that, right? So having fun is the most important thing. I think enjoying what you're doing, whether you're hardcore, trainer or, part-time enthusiast or whatever, enjoy what you do. And, appreciate all the things in your life, not just the Kung Fu, um, which, I appreciate a lot, but I also, like I have my wife and son and stuff like that. And then, practice like I said at the beginning, right? Don't try to put things into boxes. I like to connect things, see what connects. I would say, before you start going out and seeking other things, now I'm not saying, be restricted to one style, but maybe get a firm base in something and then venture out. If you're like, oh, I want to learn Eagle Claw today and Mantis tomorrow and this and that, it's maybe difficult to get a good foundation
For sure.
because, some of those things don't necessarily, they don't always connect the same way. So practice that and then hmm, yeah, just regular practice. Like that's the secret. You know, I've competed and people are, oh, you're really good, blah blah blah. There was one competition we were at, and one of my Kung Fu brothers overheard somebody, saying like, oh, you can't learn more than one style. You'll never be good at it, and blah blah blah. And then I walked by apparently, and that guy's like, oh, there goes Taran. He wins a lot of stuff, and it's like, well, and he's doing different things, right? Like, um get that foundation, whatever it is. Ideally, somebody who can give you regular feedback in person, right? Because you need those hands-on adjustments and stuff like that. And then if you want to go out and seek other things, sure, go for it. See if your Sifu has recommendations. Oh, hey, maybe you should go, seek out this person or something like that. My Sifu was pretty broad-minded. He trained with lots of different teachers. Um, and, trusting your teacher, trusting that cliche, trust the process, right? If your Sifu or your instructor has, been in the game for a long time, that doesn't mean they're good because sometimes you see them and they're maybe not so good. And they're like, I've been practicing for 40 years. And you're like, well, maybe not so great practice, but right, like try and trust them and see what there is.
Mhm. What kind of goals do you have for yourself in the near future?
I want to. Well, for Dragon and Lion Dance, my goal is to take my team to Singapore to do training with my Sifu. So we brought him over here a couple times. I want to go over there. I've never been there, and I think that would be a really great experience to get like that hands-on training uh, in country, right? For goals for me, I really want to. I mean, this is every teacher's dream, right? To get a student who really wants to go deep and train really, really hard, who's willing to basically like be thinking about it all day, probably like what you do, right? And myself, always kind of thinking about it and looking out the window and be like, man, I want to go out and train and stuff like that. Oh yeah, that's another advice. Like you go to school, you go to class to learn, you go home to practice.
Mm, well said.
You won't get good if you're just practicing in class.
Right. Maybe an hour, 2 hours a week is not going to get you to those goals for
Yeah.
sure.
And it took me, I think, into my 30s before it started really getting good. I was never worried about being the best. I just practiced. And that a lot of people will get discouraged because to get really good at Chinese martial arts, it requires so much time. Huge investment, huge time sink to get good, to get the power, the flow, the grace, all of that stuff, to get, sensitivity with your torso, right? Or stuff like that. It all takes a lot of time because it's not natural. It's not intuitive. I hate when people say that, oh, it's the natural way to move. No, it's all trained.
We train it until
Uh,
it
but
becomes
you
second
know, it,
nature.
yeah, exactly. But it's not second nature off the start.
Yeah.
But ultimately, right, have fun with it. That's the most important thing. Have fun. Enjoy what you're doing. If you're not enjoying it, go play basketball or something like that. I don't know. Go hiking or something. Life is far too short, and there's a lot of bad things that happen in life for you to be so focused on something you don't enjoy.
Well said. Well said. Well, Master Turner, how can people find you? How can people contact you?
Uh, One, if you're gonna contact me, you should probably send me a message or something like that. Right? Don't just contact me out of the blue, or like try and add me on Facebook because a lot of the times I don't accept people that I don't know. Uh, you can, find me that way. Uh, because yeah, shoot me a message, be like, hey, I know you from this or something like that. Um, I'm on Instagram too, Kung Fu Terran, really easy. That's where I post most of my Kung Fu stuff. My Facebook is a lot of personal stuff, like spending time with my family and things like that. Um, so yeah, Instagram, or you could just find me. I'm here in Austin. You can just show up. My Lion Dad's team's practices are open to the public, and where they're at is public information. You just show up.
Very
I'm
cool.
not that hard to find. My name's pretty easy. I think I'm the only Terran Champagne running around.
I'm gonna later ask you for some contact information, whatever you feel comfortable, and we'll put it in the notes
Okay,
on
cool.
the YouTube clip. But just want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was fun.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that certainly we can do further interviews because I think we could spend hours talking about your background, where you've been, what you've learned. Um, you're just a remarkable individual, and I'm so grateful to count you as one of my friends. And we've talked about not just kung fu stuff, but just everything about life, family. This guy here, I just want to give a shout out to Taryn. Like he has balance in not only like his kung fu, but in everything that he does. And
Well, thank
anybody
you.
would be lucky to be learning from him in Texas and Austin. So I
Well,
can't wait
thank you.
until the next time we see each other again. So